worry, I'm gonna pay you. Well, hello and welcome back, you bloodthirsty sweethearts. I thought we'd spend a little time this Halloween talking about the original Jason Voorhees fan club. Not a bunch of nerds in masks, but a community banding together to kick the balls of tyrants right in their frickin' throats. Ladies and gents, let's head back to the Revolutionary War to talk about the Overmountain men, the original ghost story of the American Revolution. It's September of 1780. A super hardcore Scottish officer named Patrick Ferguson put together an angry mob of pissed off American loyalists, rampaged across the countryside, and then publicly informed the colonists of the southern colonies that if they dared to resist the might of the British crown, he would march his army over the mountains, hang their leaders, and lay their country to waste with fire and sword. Okay, wanker. The colonists responded with one of the most bizarre, mysterious, and badass military actions ever taken in the history of warfare by organizing it into the world's most heavily armed neighborhood watch out of pissed off bear hunting frontiersmen. At this time, a big problem for the Brits was that you could... Sorry, lost it. At this time, a big problem for the Brits was that you had a bunch of rebel patriots running around doing guerrilla shit like Francis Marion and Mel Gibson. I love that movie. Ferguson, the one-armed Scotsman with a reputation for headbutting his enemies into pulp, was precisely the kind of guy needed for the job. Major Patrick Ferguson immediately recruited a sizable force of American loyalists and began laying waste to the countryside. As a result, you end up with a lot of real ugly shit going down because the men in this command weren't professional soldiers. While I'm sure many of them really wanted to serve their king and country, plenty of dudes also signed up just because they wanted to burn their asshole neighbor's house to the ground and steal his TV and Amazon packages. It's true. Even today, we don't know much about the Overmountain men. We know they came from towns in the western parts of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and the present-day states of Tennessee, West Virginia, and Kentucky, which didn't even exist as colonies at the time. A call went across the western towns and homesteads. Any man willing to fight should grab his rifle and meet up at Sycamore Shoals. Is that a pretty large group of pissed-off frontiersmen, homesteaders, Indian fighters, and mountain men went up to western Tennessee and crossed 90 miles of mountains, rivers, and wildlands in 5 days. Major Ferguson heard rumors that these militias were organizing against him. So he took his loyalist forces, numbering about 1,000 troops. He built some half-assed fortifications to give the enemy the impression he was in a weakened position, thus enticing them. He set up his camp and waited for the colonials to drop by. On October 7, 1780, the colonials arrived, but they didn't form up and fight the way Ferguson was hoping. Ferguson had been expecting a reverse Bunker Hill. The rebels would form into their shitty, disorganized militia companies, charge uphill like morons, and disintegrate the moment the first British volley hit them. These colonials weren't military, and didn't try to be. Their battle style wouldn't translate well into fighting the king's infantry. These guys were formidable hunters, used to forest wilderness combat, and they weren't going to give Ferguson the satisfaction of a face-to-face battle. They ducked behind rocks, fired, and used trees as cover, and sniped the Brits with deadly accuracy from their rifled muskets. Ferguson, well, he couldn't figure out how many guys he was actually fighting, and couldn't figure out where they were even coming from. He formed his armies up into rank and file and charged downhill a half a dozen times, and then had to walk back uphill again when the frontiersmen slipped away into the forest. At some point, Ferguson tried a good old-fashioned bayonet charge. But at what? It's not like there's anybody to charge against. They hadn't made it to the tree line during the final of these futile charges when Ferguson caught a bullet to the heart and died on the field. Seeing their commander take a bullet to his tits, and have a long stream of shot in the heart and explosive diarrhea. Oh boy. Seeing their commander take a bullet to the tits and have a long stream of shot in the heart and explosive diarrhea fill his britches pretty much sealed the deal for his gaggle-fuck army. The battle was over in a few hours. The British suffered 157 dead, 163 wounded, and 700 captured. The Overmountain men claimed less than 30 KIA in the battle. These guys didn't write any fucking songs, not even a letter to Congress, not even a book. They just picked up their shit and walked home. You know, there's something extraordinary, weird, and poetic about the whole thing. This was just a group of ordinary guys, people with homes and families and farms, whatever. When they heard that this army was coming to come in and start fucking shit up, they formed just long enough to deal with this Ferguson guy. Fought him on their own terms, and then once their job was done, they went home, content that the threat to the Overmountain towns had been appropriately dealt with. The battle, while being a weird little one-off during the American Revolution, actually had a long-reaching impact on the war and the American independence movement. It destroyed a unit of around 1,000 men and convinced the British that the rebels weren't done fighting yet. The British would lose control of South Carolina soon after and surrender at Yorktown less than a year later, ending the American Revolution. Well, there you have it, folks. There's something inherently American about neighbors banding together in common cause when crisis strikes. From the Overmountain men during the Revolutionary War to the rooftop Koreans during the LA riots. It is one of those sacred rights we don't always have to exercise, but must never forget is a pillar of what makes us Americans. We protect the things that are sacred to us, and we don't take shit from Europeans. Till next time, kids. Sleep tight and stack bodies.